Bob Schwartz, new at the company here at Magento. What's your role at Magento?
I'm president of Magento and loving it.
Since when? When did you start?
Since the end of last year.
What exactly is your role? What do you do at the company?
So I was invited into the company to help oversee sales, marketing, and overall business operations.
Tell us a little bit about your background.
Wow.
You're very experienced in the e-commerce market, so...
Very experienced sometimes means I've been around a long time. I've done a lot of interesting things. I'm passionate about building great e-commerce companies. Some of my background, I go back to actually dial-up and Prodigy was the first time I ever had a chance to sell anything online, and that's when I realized it was magic, as well as when we sold, I was involved with selling computers on QVC, and you could see the real-time nature of direct, and it's fascinated me. And so the internet became something that I've done since it was born, and selling or e-commerce since it was born. Along the way, let's see, I was involved with a bunch of different companies, including responsible for launching and building and ultimately spinning off a company called Nordstrom.com, which is the internet retailer component of a $10 billion a year company called Nordstrom. And today it's rolled back in within the company, and it'll do over $1 billion. There's a company that I was involved in called LiveBid that we sold to Amazon.com. And a series of fashion and apparel retailers like Vive and Portero, where I stepped in as either president or interim CEO to build those companies.
Tell us a little bit about Portero. It's an interesting company. I think it's Richmond is invested in this company. What do they do, and what's exciting about this company?
Well, Portero was actually one of the touch points where I engaged with Magento, and I had been following Varian for a couple of years, and in fact I was following your emails and your feeds and newsletters, and both of them had a different point of view on e-commerce, which was fantastic. And when I stepped in as interim CEO of Portero, one of the things we had to do was re-platform Portero, and our chief technology officer wanted to use open source, and we went and met with the Magento folks and fell in love with the product and actually built Portero 1.0 or Portero re-platform on Magento, and built Portero Private, a private sale component also, just to have a kind of a marketing engine for us. And it was a lot of fun. Portero itself is a online luxury marketplace, and it sells everything from watches, Rolex, Panerai, Cartier, to handbags, including Birkin bags, which go for $40,000. Its average ticket price is high. It's roughly sometimes about $1,500 average ticket price, which is fantastic.
So you implemented a private retailing site there, and you wrote a very interesting blog post on private retailing, flash sales space in the US or global. I don't know. What's your perspective on this market at the moment?
I think what I'm seeing, and I think it's exactly what you know also out there, is e-commerce is going into what I would call its 2.0 phase. So if Web 2.0 was started a handful of years ago with interesting experience layer on top of the Web 1.0, which created mostly media experiences like Flickr, like Facebook, and etc. These layers that were built on top of the Web 1.0 layer, we're now seeing that happen in e-commerce. And part of the manifestation is private sale, where they're using the experience of time, limited inventory, and etc. on top of it. I love this. I love the idea that e-commerce is getting an experience layer. Retail is all about experience, and I love it that it's being adopted. That said, towards the end of last year, there was such a proliferation of private sales sites that I got calls from top consulting companies, Fortune 500 companies, and independent venture and private equity firms, all looking to invest and to grow these businesses, that it became obvious that there was a private sale bubble going out there. So I did not only have that blog post, just not really saying it's a bad business, but here's the aspects that you need to look at it.
Are there still opportunities in this market from your perspective?
I think my sense is the leaders that are out there have built great brands for themselves, and they're going to figure out what to do with it. If you look at the private sale market, what it is, it's basically in the United States we call them jobbers. They're people that go in, find excess inventory, and they move it out different channels than the way the brands originally would want it to be moved. There's always an opportunity in that. But I'm not so sure that that unto itself is a company that's venture backable. I think if you and I wanted to go start that business, we'd make some good money and have a nice living. But we're beholden to the brands, and I think brands now are getting more and more smart about inventory and right sizing and their timing of their inventory. And at the same time, I think the big retailers out there are having serious conversations with the brands about where they're showing up, and that these private sales sites are not as private as they used to be. So I think it's a bit of a concern.
What is the opportunity in the mobile market from your perspective?
I love the mobile market. Here's what I like about the mobile market. Magento Commerce was built. Roy and I spoke about it, and Yoav. And really the premise of Magento Commerce, Magento Mobile, the premise of Magento Mobile is really built about allowing the retailers and the merchants out there to begin to understand and to experiment. So I won't use the word commoditizing, because we're allowing it for high customization, and we're allowing for the ecosystem to build on top of it. But we're creating a platform that'll allow the merchants to quickly and easily create a branded client-based iPhone and then ultimately iPad application and Android application, and to begin to understand what their clients, what drives their clients. Me personally, I like the cross between, I'll say, private sale-like model or a Woot-like model. I think it's fascinating, because what I see happening is the client's going to, or the customer will download these applications. We need them to download them, then we need them to utilize them. So how do we get that to happen? I think all our merchants are going to have to learn. I think our ecosystem is going to come up with great ideas on top of that. The one I actually like is if you really created, instead of an app that's about a storefront, it's an app that offers up instant sales. So it's a flash sale, it's limited goods, and it's random. So only if you have the application do you know that there's 100 items that you can purchase right here, right now. And it gives the excuse for the customer to carry the application so they can respond and buy immediately and have some fun with it. And then underneath it would be the full product catalog, so that the merchant can shop it. I love mobile. I think there's going to be some innovation. We don't even know yet what the answer is. I believe very strongly that the Magento ecosystem will figure it out for us.
You announced at your presentation the enablement lab, you called it. You didn't want to call it incubator, so it should be close to Magento or part of Magento. What is to expect here?
That's great. So we didn't call it an incubator. It's a tough word that's out there. I've had experiences with them. It's a tough word. And the other side to it is, we're not professing that in Magento, in our headquarters, let me go back. What we are saying is, in the Magento headquarters, we'll create flexible space and flexible facilities for up-and-coming e-commerce companies that want to be near Magento, to learn quickly and have access to some of our resources. What it is not is, it's not about stock, it's not about options, it's not about capital. We will be charging some amount for this flexible space. But we think that by having a flexible, almost hive-like space, and allowing companies to come in that are growing quickly and have access to the Magento resources, we think that that's part of who we are, and that's enabling the e-commerce ecosystem.
Is there a model for it, or is it just a new idea that you came up with?
It's purely, it's not a, you can't think of it as, when we talk about it, it's not a model like the labs or an incubator. The whole idea is purely the Magento mission, which is enabling the e-commerce ecosystem. And one way we can do that is by opening up a chunk of our office and allowing up-and-coming companies to have space at the company and have access to our resources. I don't, at this point, we don't think it's free. We'll probably be billing for it, but it's not going to be a heavy cost either.